There you go. So these calls are recorded and they become a resource for you to come back to. If you've got your membership login, you can go back into the membership side of the 1776 Syndicate and you can rewatch these calls. Or if you miss a call, it's going to be there for you. Okay. So the questions that we ask, the answers that we give all become very valuable for people running for office in the future. All right. So during the call, if we can keep everybody on mute. If you've got questions, raise your hand. I'll call on you as the moderator tonight. And then that way we're not stepping on top of each other. I do ask that you don't record the calls yourselves. We'd like to maintain this information on our site and keep control of where this goes. And then, of course, if you're asking questions or making statements, let's keep a professional tone. We've got a conservative group in here. We're all similarly aligned. But if we ever get to the point where we've got an outsider, we'll have to boot you out. So with that being said, I might usually go through some news updates, but I think the biggest thing we've got going on right now is the convoy coming through town. There's been a lot of news up in Canada about what's going on up there. So exciting to see how the Canadians are pushing back, and especially seeing how our Montanans are rallying around what's happening up there. In other news, right now, I was just talking before the call, we've got County Commissioner Brad Abel on this call. We have 68 people that are now a part of the 76 Syndicate. So this thing's growing. And what that's showing me, there's a lot of interest in people running for different offices. I know we've got commissioners, house districts, and school boards all represented here. And we do have Jason Preston out of Utah running for Congress. He's got a conflict tonight. So the group is growing. The resources are here. And I'm really happy to say that we've got that number of people involved. We're looking at getting some additional support for the school board members. They're on this call, maybe at a national level through Steve Daines' campaign and some efforts there. So we're starting to make some strides. So tonight's guest is Braxton Mitchell. He's up in Columbia Falls. And I'm just thrilled to know Braxton and watch his political career unfold in the last year that I've met him. And I'll let him tell his own story. But what's amazing about Braxton is he started at a very young age. He's shown his grit and his worth. He's put some bills into the house and he keeps showing up to the job. So we're thrilled to have him on the call. So with that, Braxton, I'd like to open up your presentation. Tonight we're talking about where we draw our friends and campaign support.
Well, I appreciate Jim for having me tonight on here, and thank you for the members of the Syndicate for joining in. My name is Braxton Mitchell, 21 years old, and I represent House District 3 seat for the State House of Representatives. My district covers the Columbia Falls area, up into the North Fork, the Canyon areas, Glacier National Park, and into Essex. It's been the honor of my life to serve at such a young age and be able to bring a fresh perspective into the lawmaking process here in Montana. Growing up, and to this day, I pretty much consider myself an average everyday kid. Grew up in Columbia Falls, played high school ball, ran some cross country. Spent most of my life helping out with our family's business, Montana Jerky Company, and then we also have a local processing company also called Van Meats. For those from the Flathead, you probably know what that is. During my entire life, I always considered myself a Republican, but I really wasn't involved in politics. But about 2015, I'd say in the summer, I was about 15 years old, and I started kind of to follow the presidential election. I really liked Ben Carson, Rubio, and ultimately became a supporter of Trump in the 2016 election. And in 2017, I really got involved in politics. I started helping out with the grassroots level for then the special election congressional race for Greg Gianforte. He was running against Rob Quist at the time, and so we were trying to make sure we didn't have a Democratic congressman because it was an off-year election. It was a special election, so you never know how turnout's going to be. And I think the body slam definitely drew out a lot of our base at the last minute there and got him through. So it was good to see that we got that race won. After that, I really wasn't involved too much in any other political stuff. But then in February 14th of 2018, the Parkland shooting had happened at the school in Florida, where 17 kids were killed. A tragedy that definitely struck the nation. After the event, so the mainstream media pretty much came out and was encouraging kids to walk out of their classrooms and walk out against the Second Amendment, and they completely didn't even talk about anything about the students who lost their lives in the school. It was just a Second Amendment anti-gun push. So I got a bunch of my buddies at the school that I was going to in Columbia Falls here to walk out in support of the Second Amendment and in support of the victims who had lost their lives. And we were able to get more people on our side than the anti-gun guys did. And that kind of got me more involved with stuff. I was just kind of seeing how the media and how they're trying to push the way that this next generation of kids are being kind of brainwashed, whether it's through social media, through the media, etc. And I've kind of just been involved politically ever since. Also in that year, 2018, I got involved with the senatorial race in Montana. I helped out with Dr. Al in the primary at the grassroots level again, and then ultimately for Matt Rosendale, who won the primary. I spent most of my free time in the summer that year, and when I wasn't in college in the fall, also 2018, doing all I could to help get folks that were my age to kind of get out, stand, and vote for Matt in the Senate race to get rid of Tester. Unfortunately, it didn't go too well for us because at the national level it was a pretty big blue wave year, so we were close but didn't get it done. But I think going into 24, I think we have our best shot ever to take out Tester, with it being a presidential year and just with the way things are going at the federal level. So hopefully that's the year that we can get him out of there finally. And after that, I worked for our congressional candidate, then Matt Rosendale. I've got my first, I guess, actual political job. I started working for Matt. Kind of funny story how that happened. I got a text from him one day and he says, "Hey, I'd like to meet with you." And I said, "Would you like to get lunch?" Whatever. He's like, "I don't have any time to do that. I just want to meet really quick." And I was like, "Okay." So we met in a parking lot actually in Big Fork at a store, and there was no place to park, middle of summer, and Flathead County, you know how it can get with the traffic. And we actually parked in front of where the trucks unload, and so then there was nobody parked there at the time, and we talked for about 15 minutes. He said he was running for Congress, wanted me to join his team, and about just before we got done, a guy pulled in. He tried to park his truck to unload something from his truck, and the guy knocked on the window, and Matt had these tinted windows in his truck, and Matt rolls the window down. The guy was like, "Oh," because he knew who Matt was I'm sure from the Senate race, so he recognized his face because all the TV ads, and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir." And Matt's like, "Relax, it's okay, we'll leave." But ended up working for Matt after that. Worked for him for about a year and a half or so. It was a great experience. I think met a lot of people, went to a lot of Lincoln Reagan events across the state. It was really cool to see and go to areas like Webo and Scobie, the middle of kind of nowhere. My grandparents grew up there and never been up there, but kind of got to see the whole state and go to places where I never thought I'd ever go to. Towns of 5 people, some with 15. So it was a really cool experience. But then it was the late 2019, I got a call from Don Kay. So at the time he was running for state party chair here in Montana, to be the chairman of the Republican Party. And he encouraged me to run and gave me a bunch of reasons why to run for this House district seat here in Columbia Falls. He gave me a multitude of reasons and a lot of confidence, I guess, to run for the seat. I put some thought into it for a few weeks, and then I was approached by some folks actually locally at a Columbia Falls high school basketball game. And they had said, "Hey, we've always voted for the Democrat in this seat, but we're a Republican." And it's because the Republican had always ran. A lot of folks didn't necessarily know or didn't have a favorable opinion of him. And they said, "We've always voted for the Democrat. We can name 10 people here, 10 people here that had done the same thing." And so they all kind of encouraged me to run for that seat. So that's when I kind of decided, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I ran against a woman named Debo Powers. She had just moved from Montana, from Florida a few years prior. And I noticed from the start, none of her viewpoints I ever thought resonated with the vast majority of folks in my district or across Montana. So it definitely added to my confidence and pushed hard and did the work and knocked thousands of doors, it felt like, with volunteers in the summer and in the fall of 2020. During the campaign at the end there, I'm sure John would know, Brad would know, some folks on here. They ran some horrific ads. They even ran a TV ad, and I know there's only a few people that ran TV ads in the state. I mean, it was just crazy. They ran a TV ad saying I was going to sell all the public lands in the state, and that I was going to cut down all the forests. And I had no past statements saying I was going to do that. There was no sourced information on it, and it just made no sense where it was coming from. They also ran ads claiming that I was a white supremacist with no source at all. I have a black nephew, so he stood by my side on that the entire time, debunking the claims. They ran ads claiming I wanted to abolish public education, and they did so much more. I mean, it was definitely a very interesting campaign. So I spent every day after work for that last couple weeks of the election. I would stand outside the post office. And so when people were going in, they were grabbing these mailers and whatnot. I would stand out there and I would, try and get my side of the story. Like, hey, no, I'm not trying to sell your public lands, and I'm not trying to abolish public education, and the list goes on. And I think that definitely helped a ton. Just kind of talking to folks. And a lot of them I had recognized in the doors or just from, living in Columbia Falls my entire life. So I think that definitely helped out in the race ultimately. And it was interesting too, because they were doing all that as the mail-in ballots were going out. So, you didn't know who had voted yet, who hadn't voted yet. Somebody saw that and then voted, so it was definitely, the last couple of days there, I was kind of, worried about, are people thinking this is true? This is not true. Then we got to election night. I'll never really forget that, because as the results are coming in, how did that go? So all these numbers were coming in at 6, 7, 8 o'clock. And for some reason, there was a few races here in the Flathead where results weren't even coming in until 10, 11, midnight. And I was in Bozeman with the state party chair elect at the time, Don Kay. And I mean, looking across the room, all Republicans in the state were winning. At the time, President Trump's numbers were super good. And I almost kind of forgot I was even in a race. And then, it was till the end when we were like, oh shoot, like where are these results at? And then they came in, and it was just great to see the support we had. And the results were definitely way beyond any of our polls or expectations were from past races. So it was definitely a very cool deal. In the session, we passed a lot of incredible legislation, I think. It was a great session. I learned a ton. I sat on the House Tax Committee, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and Education. I learned a ton, built a ton of relationships. I really wasn't too policy oriented as a freshman, but I decided it would be best kind of build relationships, learn the process in my first session, and I'm glad I did. And a lot of folks take that approach. It's a lot to learn in 3 or 4 months. And, for someone like me who really hadn't followed the session in the past, never really had a political aspiration in the first place, it was definitely a lot to learn in those 3 or 4 months. But now that I've gone through the process, I have a lot of ideas and proposals going into the next session and, future sessions if I do get reelected. But yeah, during the session, I mean, we passed bills. We passed the Religious Freedom Act. We passed Representative Fuller's bill here to not allow men and women's sport, not allow men to compete against women. We banned the vaccine passports in Montana. And we passed all these vaccine bills. Everyone across the country were like, why are you doing this? And we were actually one of the first states to take this approach on those issues. And people were saying, you guys are conspiracy theorists that'll never come to this. And, you look now, it's 2022 and states and different, across the country and across the world, they're mandating vaccines, they're, vaccine passports to travel, this, that, and this. So I'm glad that we were one of the first states to kind of lead the way on that. We passed numerous pro-life bills. We lowered our state income tax rate. That was fun in House Tax getting that done. We try to bring a lot of amendments to lower it more, but we're hoping going into the next session we'll be able to lower it more, especially with the amount of surplus we're going to have at the state level. We passed legislation to make sure Montanans have confidence in our elections. And I mean, the list goes on. We did a lot of good stuff, I think. And I mean, there's so much we could talk about. I think we voted on 1,500 different things. I mean, it was just crazy. Some of the issues I think going to the next session we can address are lowering property taxes. I think that's one of the first thing that comes to mind. Especially in the Flathead here and across Montana, we've seen how they've skyrocketed over the past couple of years. A lot of it's due to the proposed levies that we're seeing by these school boards. And you think you never, there's no such thing as a piece of paper or a whiteboard in a classroom anymore. It's all technology and this, and that's why, we're seeing everything, all these tax increases, because they're trying to pay for all these new, it's not like the old school. When I first few years when I went to school, it was, still a chalkboard and, papers. I'm sure a lot of you guys, it was like that, but, getting to my last few years of school, it was, all technology, and it was just a whole different thing from, I guess, elementary to junior high to high school. It just, things were always changing. And, but yeah, but if I get calls and emails every week from constituents, and talking to other legislators, this is the issue that we hear from the most. From my understanding, there's work being done in the interim on this. So that's good to see. So hopefully in the first few weeks of the 23 session, we can get some legislation passed to help out folks, especially seniors too, who are on fixed incomes. They're seeing their property taxes increase, and especially here in the Flathead. So hopefully that's something that we can address going in. Other issues too is critical race theory. That's a big thing for, Montana families. Their kids are being taught to, think that one race is more superior than another. And it's just a hateful ideology. And the state attorney general, as some of you would know, passed an AG's opinion banning it, but I think it's important that we put it into code, for in case we have a new AG or, a new governor in the future. So it'll be harder for them to, take it out. But that's something I intend to bring next session. I'll carry that bill for sure. Let's see what else. So what else are we looking for next session? So also, I think school choice is a big issue too, because we've seen during COVID how the teachers unions have overplayed their hand a lot. And it shows the importance of school choice. We tried to pass the charter schools bill this session. Unfortunately, I died in committee. I'm not sure why. But I think there's a lot of folks on that committee that don't have the interests of Montana families in mind. So that's why a lot of these bills that we try to pass, aside from just the school, aside from that, didn't pass. We need to make sure also that Montana's continue to have, confidence in our elections. As I stated earlier, there's a lot more we can do to strengthen voter ID laws. Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's kind of what I got. Looking ahead, I do have a Democrat opponent right now. She just filed this past weekend. She's from up in Columbia Falls here. From what I know, the lady I ran against last time, it seems like she's probably going to run again. So it looks like they'll probably have a primary. I did actually have a primary opponent yesterday on the Republican side. And I called the lady and I said, "Hey, why'd you want to run?" And she says, "Well, one, I didn't realize you were running again. And two, I heard that a Republican had filed, and I heard that a Democrat had filed. So I threw my name in the hat, thinking that, because she thought that the general election was kind of she thought the primary election was set up like the general. So she didn't realize that, she thought if they put more Republicans on the ballot, it would draw votes away from the Democrats. So I said, no, in the primary, it would be whoever wins, goes to the general, and then it's 1 versus 1, unless there's a third party candidate, of course. So I actually got her to drop out yesterday, and then she sent me some money actually too. So, and then said she would help out with the campaign going forward. So yeah, had a primary opponent there for a minute, but yeah, right now just back into campaign season, and seems like we were just in campaign season yesterday. So, but yeah, I guess that's a little bit about me and the session. And yeah.
Braxton, great overview of all the accomplishments that you've achieved and who you are and what you stand for. A question for you for the group, and that is, as you were campaigning for your first time, obviously you were exposed to some great people like Matt Rosendale and others. But where did you draw your strength from during your campaign? Was it a family thing, friends thing, or a little bit of everybody? Because we've got a lot of people running for the first time now.
Yeah, I'd say it was a little bit of everybody. And like I said, Don Kay, I mean, just kind of him giving me the confidence, saying, "Hey, I was 19 years old when he first called me and said, 'Hey, you should run.'" And I was like, how could a 19-year-old kid, ever win an election? And I mean, I remember one of the first doors I knocked on. The people were actually excited to see that young people were running, and they didn't care what political side you're on. They're just excited to see young people run. So that was a big confidence booster. Just, receiving funds from folks, them actually trying to invest in your campaign. just going to state party events and seeing people like that were excited to see, young people run, and just, yeah, and obviously having the support of, Congressman Rosendale. I mean, that was really big, someone who's been elected, who's, in a very powerful position, saying, hey, we want more young guys to run. And I think just, from, whether it was, Senator or future Senator Fuller, other folks on the, the local level here, saying, hey, we want more young guys to run. It was, it was just a compilation of a lot of things, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah. Any advice for people that are running for their first time, things that they should look out for or try or not be afraid to do? I know door knocking is a big intimidating factor, especially in Montana with long driveways and big pastures, and Utah and some of these other states. Any thoughts or ideas there?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say always be yourself. I mean, never, lie about where you stand on things to get a vote. I mean, just be yourself, and people can tell when you're being yourself and being real with them and having a genuine conversation with them at a door or whatever. Yeah, and obviously door knocking is the biggest thing I would say. Making that one-on-one connection with voters. I remember when I ran a Facebook ad, I saw that there was a guy. I ran a Facebook ad saying, hey, it's election day, get out and vote. And a guy put a comment out. He said, this guy knocked on my door. He gained my respect. He talked to my family. We asked him about stuff. And I think I saw there was 5 or 6 other people who had liked this comment, and I didn't know who any of them were. And I clicked on those and saw, this person lived in Columbia Falls. You just looking through the pictures, you could tell you recognize them from a door here or a door there. So, it all adds up, and then they tell their friends, their family, and, it's just that one-on-one connection with folks. And it makes them feel like they're a part of what you're trying to do. And, show that you actually care about, what you're doing, you care about, making positive change for them. So, I mean, yeah, obviously, yeah, door knocking is a big thing. And, it can be definitely intimidating, especially in Montana. And, my district, I think probably the biggest one in the Flathead for House districts, because it's the Columbia Falls area, and then it goes up to North Fork. So you go to a door, and then you got to go a quarter mile here, drive over there, or walk. And, so it's definitely an interesting thing, but yeah.
Rod's got a question for you, but I wanted to touch on that real briefly. Getting face to face with people is critical because they're going to remember you. And statistically, people vote for the one that they've met in person. One of the things that you said earlier, Braxton, is you stood out in front of the grocery store, you stood out in front of the post office, you handed your flyers out and changed the narrative about you, because before they'd only seen the negative. So if you're running for an office, don't be afraid to go down to the post office or the grocery store. By me, we've got a gas station down here where all the locals go and get their cup of coffee in the morning. And I went down there at 7 to 8 a.m. a few days to meet people and BS with them over the newspaper. So the power of influence in person is great. Rod, you had a question?
I did. Thanks, Jim. So Braxton, I really appreciate you sharing your story, and especially because I'm one of those that if somebody had asked me when I was 19 years old to get involved, I probably would have said yes, but nobody ever asked. I never had that opportunity. But what strikes me about your history, your short history in politics, is your rise to success already, and you've made lasting changes, that for our state. I've been on national calls, and I know Alex Weber is on the call, and he does a national Zoom call. And there are people out there, when I mention I'm from Montana, they say, oh, you're from a free state. And it's because of legislation that you've backed. But my point to the campaigning, and so thank you for that. My point to campaigning is, what strategies, besides door knocking and being out there and changing that narrative? You mentioned that you'd worked with now Governor Gianforte's campaign and stuff. What did you learn from working with other people's campaigns that helped you and that would help other people in their run for any office?
Yeah, I would say, I learned a lot. So I didn't work for Greg campaign necessarily. I have more of a grassroots effort kind of on the ground. I did work for Matt. But I'd say with Matt, whether it was through digital targeting of voters, whether it was peer-to-peer texting, even making surprise phone calls to people. I know he was more of a, national candidate. So a lot of folks, were more interested in it than they were for more local people. But just making, a one-on-one call to a voter. Hey, this is Matt, not an automated, voice thing. It's just little things like that, I would say. And I mean, just making, again, the one-on-one connections, from what I would say. We would be at a Subway, for instance, and people would walk in, and people would say, hey, hey Matt, or hey Matt. Everyone knew who the guy was, and he would sit there and he would actually have a conversation with people. He would be one-on-one. He would bring up something about oh, how's things going at home. It wouldn't be anything about politics. It's just having that mutual connection with them, that aside from politics, because the vast majority of people, they know how they're going to vote, but they don't really follow politics. They don't really talk about politics. So just being a real everyday normal person. And then going back to that, I mean, before I got into politics, I wanted to be a football scout in the NFL. That was like my dream job, sports management, so I never really had the political aspiration or any of that stuff, like I had mentioned. So if someone, a politician walks up to me and starts talking about football or something, I'm going to respect the guy more probably than even talking politics with the guy, so but yeah, I mean, just little things like that. I don't know if that answers your question, but I mean, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, obviously, again, door knocking, texting to digital ads. I think digital ads are one of the more, it can be beneficial, at the same time it can kind of hurt you. A lot of folks, they run them on Facebook. I think those are beneficial because you can target your own base. You can run them on Google also, but make sure you run them through sites that are gaining traffic, and that people with your political philosophy are going to see, so you're not wasting your money on more third-party sites where you wouldn't know, or people in your district might not be going to, so someone in California isn't seeing it, for instance, or yeah.
Braxton, thanks for that answer. We got another question. What's great about who's represented on this call, we've got Montana, Utah, and Colorado, all areas where it's small enough where you kind of know your neighbors, and we can really get some value from, standing out at the subway or what have you and meeting people. Lloyd Bondi, you got a question for Braxton?
Yeah. Hey, Braxton, thank you for what you're doing for Montanans and for us here in the Valley. Really appreciate your time and your service. My question is, I'm running for Kalispell School District 5, Elementary District 4, Financial District, which is Lakeside, Summers, and Kyla. And I ordered my door hangers, some signs, some donor envelopes, but I've never had to raise funds for anything in my life. Do you have any tips or suggestions on how to go about it, where to look, what to any help you can offer would be great, because I'm sinking here.
Yeah, so the first thing I did, when I first got in, I was like, oh my gosh, how do I raise money? How do I, start up this campaign? And first thing, reach out to family and friends, kind of get it jump started. If you're able to get, whether it's $1,000 or $200, you're getting something off the ground. Obviously you got the signs ordered, you got all that stuff. So you're off to a good start there. But I mean, just reaching out, I don't know if PACs or anything can donate to what you're running for. I'm pretty sure they can.
Yes, they can.
So maybe you're sending in writing letters, fundraising letters, so handwritten, to PACs. You would be good people to call. I don't have any suggestions for PACs, but I know that there are some in Montana that will give to more conservative leaning people, or just people who even reach out to them in the first place. But yeah, just writing written fundraising letters to folks who, maybe talk to somebody, who knows a lot of people, and, just getting a list from them of, potential people, say who you are, what you're running for, why you want to run, and, what change you want to, bring to, a school board or city council, legislature, etc. So, yeah, I would say those handwritten letters definitely, a good. Phone calls also to folks, just kind of saying, hey, what do you want to do? I've noticed in the, Facebook posts don't necessarily, saying, hey, I need to raise money. You might raise some money there, but it's more when people get that one. It's kind of like knocking on doors. They get that one-on-one connection. They feel like they're a part of what you're trying to do. I think they're more likely to support you, or just, hosting a fundraiser too, with some folks, and just trying to getting them to show up, and maybe not even talk politics, just have a social event and say, hey, it's $30 to get in or whatever, and you'll get people that will show up for something like that. So,
Great.
but yeah.
Yeah, Lloyd, to touch on that, by the way, If you don't have your website up yet, or maybe you do, having an option on the website for people to donate online. I've already looked up a couple people that I wanted to donate to, and it was a matter of having to write a check and send it, which I'm going to do, but that's 2 more steps. Do I have a stamp? So making it as easy as possible for people to donate. If you haven't utilized the My Campaign Online program, and if you're running for school board, remember that the Liberty or Lose Political Action Committee is going to fund the next 3 months of My Campaign Online website. So you've got an opportunity there. With those tools comes the opportunity to raise money there. So please take advantage of that.
I'm setting up that website this week. I might need a little bit of help because I don't understand a lot of that.
Yeah, great. And by the way, these are great questions, Lloyd. That's what this group is here for, is to ask these questions and flesh out these things. This is equally your time. And then we can leverage people like Braxton and some of the others on the call.
Sure.
Yeah, and I would say too, for an online fundraising platform, I would say Win Red will probably be a good way for you to go as a more conservative leaning guy. So Win Red is pretty much the counteract to Act Blue. So Act Blue is a fundraising platform the Democrats have used for years. And the transaction fees, which is like less than 1%, then go back into Democrats. And so the Republicans never really had, or conservatives never really had I guess a counteraction. So they've always used those third-party apps. So now Win Red's been in here for about a year now. It was more tailored towards federal candidates, but now they're allowing school board candidates, city council, legislative candidates, and we're seeing a huge slate of people on there. So anyone who's looking to donate, for instance, to Matt Rosendale or Steve Daines or someone at the national level, they can scroll down on the website and on Montana, and they can see all the school board candidates, they can see all the legislative candidates. So, your name will pop up there. So, and there's people who go on these sites from Montana, they'll donate to every, person they'll see on that site, just to, help out. So, yeah, I would definitely say for a fundraising platform, that would be a good route to go. And always add to your fundraising platform too, because a lot of folks don't, especially the more older generation, they don't necessarily like using their card online or donating online. So I always put the thing at the end there saying, hey, if you want to, you can also, mail a check here to your post office or, your house address. So, if they don't feel comfortable, and they want to, still send you money, then they can do it that way. So, yeah,
that's great advice, Braxton. Lloyd, I will help you with that later this week. When you get closer to that, you reach out to me, you know how to get a hold of me. Hey, we've got a special guest on who is Alex Weber. And the reason why I'm going to call on him, I put him on the spot a little bit, is Alex, as Rod had mentioned, has a national group. Alex is a 6-time Ninja Warrior, participant on NBC, and he's got a great backstory. He's a public speaker. He's got a book out. But Alex, thank you for joining us first and foremost. I see you there.
Yeah, first off, Jim, thank you so much for having me. And it's a thrill to be here for a lot of reasons. First off, Jim, you could ask me to go, pick up your garbage and drop it off somewhere, and I'm in, brother. Like you're one of the best guys I've met, and the fact that you're doing it with Rod, who's also one of the just most incredible men that I've met. So it's one thing that you guys are doing this. It's another thing to just be here and see, some familiar faces. I see John, which is awesome. Braxton, you are absolutely a force, man, and so inspiring. So beautiful to hear from you and to see the proof of what you all are doing, or with Lloyd's story of just taking action. And I really think that is what's so powerful, is I think for me and so many people, we got the why. We know we need to do something, but it then gets pretty lost in how or what do we take action. And so it takes its form in like frustration or yelling at the news or, that kind of thing. And so these real tangible steps that you're giving people are just so powerful. And, my version of that has been speaking out on social media, through videos, through comedy videos, and then starting this community, which is basically a nationwide and worldwide. We have people in Paris and Australia and Ireland. It's more and more becoming, I think, a support group. We bring on experts. John was a guest. Rod and Jim have both been guests. Braxton, we'd love to have you. And but also it's a support group because, as I've said to people, we are on the side of truth and good in a time when truth and good are being attacked. And that's just the real honesty of it. And so it is difficult to do this. And so I think the more that we can show and be in communities like this and strengthen numbers, not only is it going to help our results, but I think it's going to help us in actually doing it.
Alex, I appreciate those comments. You know, I've been on a couple of your phone calls, and you've got a massive audience nationally, and I know it's continuing to grow. I follow your feed on social media. What I'm wondering is if you can express, you know, in however many words here in a minute or two, to this group that's running for office, you know, in different states right now, express what some of the feelings and emotions your group is having, because like you said, you guys all have the why, and this group's trying to run, but I think a little shot in the arm of what people are saying to you on the ground about their concerns.
You know, and it's echoing something that Braxton said, and also, you know, if I'm hearing correctly from Lloyd's story, it's just, we are people who are stepping up. We're people who are just looking at this and saying, none of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. And we're talking about it with our friends. We're talking about it with our neighbors, at the gym, at work. And so I think what is really powerful is seeing someone who genuinely gets it step up and show that they're authentically listening and doing what is right. So if you call that an outsider, great. But I just think, you know, for myself and a lot of people, where we become disenchanted with politics is that at somewhere you're going to stop listening to me. At somewhere you're going to get caught in that mess over there, and you're going to stop seeing what's happening at schools or in our work or listening, and you're going to do that game. And so, you know, I feel like if you're here in this community, you have that sincere drive. So I would just say the more that you can let people know that you're connected with them, you get it. And, you know, at least that's what would get my vote. If I heard someone calling out the BS, excuse my language, and saying, I'm going to go fix it, I'm on board. So, you know, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you. Brad Abel, our county commissioner over here in Flathead County. Did you have a question or a statement for Alex? Or a statement?
Well, it was more back for Lloyd when he was talking about raising funds. Is one thing is go to Insti Prints and get your donation envelopes and pack them around. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but hand them out. It will bring you in money. That's, you know, give them to your friends, but have that information out there. That's important too.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, that's what it's uncomfortable. You know, our indication or inclination isn't to ask people for money, but in politics, it's necessary, and you're going to have to do that. So.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brad. And you know what? He's right. It's uncomfortable to ask for money, but you're doing something that 99% of the population doesn't want to do right now, and that's run for an office. I ran into somebody at the grocery store tonight. He asked what was going on. I told him who was running. He said, where do I write the check? And I literally pulled up a website of the person that's in his district. I said, here you go. He says, wonderful. He doesn't have the time or capacity to run, so he's happy to write a check. So Alex, I wanted to thank you for chiming in and tell us about what your group's doing. Hey, if anybody wanted to find you, what is your Instagram handle, or if they wanted to reach out and ask you other questions about what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate it. Thank you guys for welcoming me. So I'm Alex Weber on everything. I'll put it in the chat here, but feel free to email me, message me. If it goes off on the phone, I'll get back to you.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for adding value to this call and the group that you've got going. We look forward to connecting the dots between Montana, Utah, and Colorado a little bit better and getting more people here. If I can, I want to call on John Fuller. You'll have to give us a history lesson real briefly, John. One of the things that I was thinking about recently is other issues that us, the people on this call that are running for office, what's important, what makes a difference. And it doesn't matter if you're running for school board or commissioner, legislator, Senate. We have legitimate concerns across this country. And John, would you mind, and I know you know this topic so well, so I feel comfortable asking you, would you mind just touching on how important our judiciary system is and where that thing could be overhauled a little bit?
Well, Unfortunately, you never want to ask a former teacher a question if you have less than 50 minutes. But I will do the best I can. In Montana, judicial elections are allegedly nonpartisan. And I don't know how many times people ask me when a judicial election is coming up, what do you know about this guy? And I have to tell them, because I'm an insider, supposedly an insider, tell them a little bit about the judiciary. Nonpartisan elections are, in my opinion, designed by progressives to make it possible for everything from school boards to judges to convince the people that they're voting in a nonpartisan way, and yet you don't know what you're getting. You would never go to the grocery store and buy something that says on the package, it says, I'm the judge. Okay, well, what kind of judge? What's the ingredients? We don't have any ingredient labels and nutrition labels on nonpartisan elections. And putting a D or an R in front of those would be a start. Secondly is that the elections of Montana State Supreme Court judges are elected statewide. Everybody votes for them. And of course, so there's no accident that all 7 of them live in Helena, the capital. And it's no accident that all but one, and maybe even that one, of course, are liberal Democrat lawyers. Okay, so in the judiciary system, now the changes to this system, it used to be that judges were elected partisanly, okay, and everybody knew who they were and what they were in the various regions and districts. But beginning in the 1960s, the progressives started the process by trying to make these elections nonpartisan. And of course, you know, as Lloyd will experience here, another thing is you'll notice that there are school board elections. A problem with school board elections is the administration of the school district gets to count the ballots. That, to me, is not particularly, shall we say, transparent. And I could give you stories of school districts in Flathead County that I know where the administration engages in, shall we say, what will I want to be careful how I say it, to try to weight the scales, if you will. Now, to give you an example of why school district elections need to be changed, in my opinion, is whenever a school district has to float a bond, whether it's for a new building or capital improvement or a soccer field or a football field or whatever. Okay, I can give you an example of, as they wanted a district I used to teach in, they wanted to build a new high school, and they needed to float a $40 million bond. They passed it and it failed overwhelmingly. I mean, they put it on the ballot and it failed overwhelmingly. So a year later, they put it on the ballot again. It failed again. The next year, they scheduled the election for in the middle of spring break. The ballot passed 748 to 746 out of more than 25,000 registered voters. Okay. And $40 million, more than $40 million, as it turned out, was spent on the basis of those votes as they got it. Okay. And if that election had been held during a general election, like a primary in June or the general election in November, the people would not have been saddled with over $40 million, which of course increases their property taxes. So those are things that that need to be addressed, and they can only be addressed at the state level. They can't be addressed at the school board level. But for those of you here on the call tonight that are working to go in the school boards, I would just offer to you that remember, when you get the job, it is not, it is a job of awesome responsibility. You're going to be in charge of an enormous budget of millions and millions of dollars that affects your local neighbors. And you will be, your job was to know what is being taught, who are the people that are teaching it, and what the money and where the money is going. Okay, because you cannot be a rubber stamp to the administrators. And if there's anything that the COVID has taught us, is that the school districts and the school boards have been engaging in practices for decades now that are not what we would say are in keeping with true Montana values. And Lloyd, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yes, sir. And thank you also for serving and taking care of us here in the Valley and in the state of Montana, and best of luck in your Senate bid. I have several things stacked against me. I have my opponent is the husband of the superintendent's personal or superintendent's assistant. With this being an election year for the House and the Senate, there's a little bit less interest, I feel like, in the school board realm. And then over where I live, and this is the main part of my question, is there are geographically a lot of the houses around where I live are, on 5-acre lots and more. So I have a 4-wheeler. I'm going to travel door to door. I plan on traveling to all the doors because I need everything I can to try to overthrow the guy that's on there, the incumbent. But my question is, for any of you who have run before, as far as safety goes, you're out, you're on your own, you're on 5 acres over here. And have you run across any issues that you can share with us where maybe you found somebody with a different point of view, or somebody who was, getting a little bit heated, and how you handled those situations?
I'm going to ask Braxton to answer that question since he's our special guest tonight. And I know where he's at. There's some big properties. I will say one thing, Lloyd, while it's fresh on my mind, be as authentic as possible. I also rode my side-by-side from property to property because of the nature of my neighborhood. And people respect that. They see who you are. I had a bale of hay in the back of mine because we were feeding the horses. And it's like, oh, I'm going to go hit 10 houses tonight. So it can be done. And I think you will find that your neighbors to be very safe and accommodating. But Braxton, what's your point on that?
I didn't have any. I had some issues with some Democrats, nothing that really was physical, of course. But what I would just do, I would knock on a door. I know the school board races are nonpartisan, but I would actually just use the same method I do, even though they are nonpartisan. But I would say, hey, do you plan on voting Republican or Democrat this cycle? And so instantly you get it's the door slammed on you, or yes, so you make that connection. They don't know who, so the Democrat, they don't know who your name is. So you don't say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm running for this, blah, 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 blah. That again, just ask them instantly, hey, do you plan on voting Republican or Democrat? So then you could say, I'm the Republican conservative school board candidate running, and then elaborate from there. But I mean, from the standpoint of having an altercation, I mean, I've had folks who have kind of just gone on and, Trump this, Trump that, because they think what you're running for is national anyways. Your party's ruined by Trump, blah, blah, blah. But nothing really personal. Unless they have a personal vendetta against you, I don't think they're going to get physical with you personally. And I had that same worry too when I started knocking doors, especially because of my age, what are you doing out here? But yeah, I mean, just kind of having that first connection, Republican, Democrat, because then they're either slam the door on you or you're having a conversation with them right away. And then just one more thing on what John said earlier with the judicial races. So actually I ran a bill for the judicial races to be partisan. And, do I think the court should be partisan? No, but these judges have a political interpretation or a conservative or liberal leaning at the Constitution. So they're going to rule a certain way on guns, immigration, abortion, etc. And every Supreme Court justice that's nominated by a president, they have a partisan lean to their name because of the president who appointed them. So that is something for sure, John, that we need to work on going into 23 and beyond. So.
Lloyd, I would say be yourself. One of the greatest pleasures of running myself in my area is I met over 200 neighbors, And I was so proud to live where I live in my community. And there's a lot of yards that had no trespassing signs, and a lot of them I didn't go on. I wanted to respect that. But I've come to meet them later on, and they're like, why didn't you knock on my door? And it's like, well, you got this sign right there. So have some fun with it. Be yourself. Jerry, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So Lloyd, I just wanted to share with you what I have learned is you can go to the elections department and request, it does cost a little bit of money, but you can request a list of voters who have voted in your area. And you can find out who's voted Republican, who's voted Democrat, and then you can decide which house you want to go to so that you're not going into unfriendly waters. That's what I've been told. So, and I've also been instructed, definitely don't, if you can avoid going to the house that is a liberal house, that is the best that you can do. For whatever it's worth, I hope that that helps. And the lists aren't that expensive.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. There's actually under the door knocking section of the campaign strategy guide, it does talk about going to get those lists so that you can utilize that tool, and it is available for you. I think it was $15. So did you have another question, Lloyd?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I have that already. I have the walking list and the voter list.
Great.
But unless you know something I don't, they told me, I know that at least I believe the elections department leans, the people running it lean more on the Democrat side. I want to make sure I'm getting what I'm actually asking for. But I have those lists, but they said that you could not get one that says Democrat or Republican, that it's all in Montana, it only goes by nonpartisan.
Yeah, so in Montana, you don't register by party. What state are you from, Jerry? From
Jerry's here in Montana now.
Okay. Yeah, she looks familiar. I wasn't sure. Can't really tell on the Zoom thing here. So yeah, Montana, you don't register by party, so they can't necessarily map out or scope out, how they vote. But the GOP, they do have campaign sidekick, and you could probably get somebody who can get you some login credentials of that. I know Jake Santee here in the Flathead has access to that. So what they do is they map out based off doors that they've knocked on and folks that they've talked to over the years. They build a kind of a political ideology of each of these people and how they voted, how they said they were going to vote. So they have all them mapped out on there. So anybody who leans Democrat is off the list, or somebody who's in the middle, they might be there. They might show, an independent voter, but other than that, it's pretty much strictly conservative voters. And in the Flathead, they're easy to come by. But in places like, well, I guess, my district, and where you're at in Summers and Lakeside, Kalispell, you've got the Republicans. But then you go to Whitefish, it's a little less, but yeah.
I'm glad this topic came up because the GOP, and this isn't just for Montana, it's for places like Utah and Colorado. They do offer specific details of the voters that they've canvassed for Republicans. And I know we've talked a little bit about partisan or nonpartisan, but at the end of the day, to John's point, you want to know what you're getting. If you're willing to put on your campaign materials and identify yourself as being supported by the GOP, I have access to those lists. So that's also something we can talk about, Lloyd. And for anybody else that's running, the GOP has already said that they would give me access to those lists if we're willing to identify our affiliation with them. So we've got about 4 minutes left. By the way, John made a great point that he has campaigned on horseback in some of those areas. And John, I was thinking about doing that myself, and I just never got comfortable enough on my horse that time, but I think I would do that in the future. So look, I want to wrap this up a little bit and be respectful of everybody's time. Once the call is over in the next 3 minutes, I will stay on if people have questions outside of what we've already asked and answered. I want to thank Braxton for his time and our elected officials that are on here and everybody that's running for office. I just love watching these numbers grow. You are doing the work. You're putting the time and effort in to making a difference. And I'm really hoping and praying that these calls will make a difference as well. And I really think that hopefully we can show Alex what action looks like so he can take that back to his group of however many people are on there, next week, that he will be proud of what's going on in the country and talk about what's happening in these states that we're affiliated with. So with that, I do want to wrap up the call. Rod, any closing statements before we wrap this up?
I do. Next week's call, we have Bruce Cartwright, former FBI agent, special agent. This gentleman's got a background with the Drug Administration and Secret Service. And I mean, it's absolutely incredible. But more importantly, he is a member of the Tiger Team in Lake County with the Flathead Republican Central Committee. And he knows how to get things done, how to really get out and talk to people and get people activated. So it's a call you don't want to miss. Bruce Cartwright, we're excited to have him. So if you can jump on next week, we'd love to have you. There'll be some great content from him. And thanks everyone for being on the call.
Rod, thank you. Lloyd, Lee has offered some help for you. I'll connect you guys via text because I have both your numbers. And again, I just appreciate everybody being on the line. I'm going to turn off the record. If you want to stick around and ask specific questions, I'll stick around as long as you have questions. So thank you again. These are all recorded. They're on the back end of the 76 Syndicate. You can go back and listen to them if you missed something. Thank you, everybody.